Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, and welcome. Whoa, I had some symphony going on there. I don't know how that happened. But welcome to Mondays with Monty. I am Montegomery, and today I'm going to be talking about Season 3 items and a little bit about how to adapt an item build throughout the course of a game. Now, before I get started, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself and explain the purpose of this show. I did this last week, but in case there's anybody out there who missed the last show, or is just new in general, I just want to get this out of the way. So, if you noticed earlier, I am Montegomery, and I've been playing video games for about 25 years, which is a very long time, probably quite a bit older than a number of you. I've been playing League of Legends for about 2.5 years, and I have a lot of experience playing video games, and I do a lot of analysis and looking at the designs and things and trying to peek under the curtain, as it were, and I'm hoping to bring all of that experience and expertise to this show so that I can help you become a better player. Now, with all of that said, let's get on to the show proper. I'm going to be talking again about Season 3 items. Now, last week I talked about the Season 3 jungle, and I was able to give a nice brief synopsis of all the major changes. I can't really do that for Season 3 items because there are simply a lot of them. If I were to sit here and spend the entire... I could spend the entire show just talking about the items, just listing them all off, and that wouldn't really be that interesting of a show. You can actually go to Riot's webpage. They just posted all the information about the items, the masteries, the jungle on their own webpage literally minutes ago. So if you're really eager to get every last little bit of information, you can do that. But that's not what this show is for. I'm more of an analytical type. I'm more showing off the replays, getting into the nitty-gritty, and seeing it in practical scenarios. So instead of just listing off every single item, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 basic principles with which to approach the Season 3 item changes. Things to just keep in mind as you go into your first game and watch these replays that I'm going to show you later. So the first principle is don't panic. This is not the end of the world. It's going to be a lot of unknown, a lot of uncertainty, strange and foreign things you've never seen before, but it's no cause for panic. The other 9 people in the game that you're playing are just as in the dark as you are. Nobody else knows what they're doing, so nobody's going to care that you don't know what you're doing, and if they do, they're just being a jerk. So just relax, just treat it the same way you treated the game when you first started playing and didn't know anything about anything. It's just, you're going to learn everything in time, just be patient and everything will work out. The second point that you should keep in mind is that you should experiment. There's never a better time to just try anything wild that you've ever thought of doing than when everything's been thrown into chaos. Nobody's going to be terribly upset that you did something really weird like rushing 2 Phantom Dancers when everything's changed. Not that you should rush 2 Phantom Dancers, but just go out there and try all the new items, at least once. And this is very similar advice to what people give new players about champion free weeks. Whenever there's a champion that's free that you've never played before, try them out. It's just a really good way to get familiar with something that you otherwise wouldn't want to fight without any information. You wouldn't really want to fight Eve for the first time without knowing that she can be invisible all the time. That can be very surprising and shocking and painful. So just take the chance, go into a custom game or a co-op versus AI and just build everything at least once so that you can be prepared for when somebody uses it against you, and so you're not terribly shocked when the enemy AD carry can attack 3 people at once. That's an actual item in Season 3. We won't see that tonight, but it's one of the many, many exciting items. So the third and final point that you should keep in mind is be flexible. And this is a very general principle that can apply even today in Season 2. I don't know how much longer it's going to last, but it may last another week, who knows. But in any case, be flexible. Item builds are not rigid, set-in-stone Moses and the tablets things. They are malleable. If you're doing a build and the enemy AP happens to be LeBlanc and she's super fed, you probably want to work some magic resist into your build that you otherwise might not have had. Conversely, if the enemy team has a Riven, a Twitch, a Xin Zhao, and a Kha'Zix on it, that magic resist that you were going to build probably isn't that important. You probably want some armor instead. That's the most basic example, but we're going to see a little bit of that when I get to the replays. But again, 3 principles to keep in mind. The first, don't panic. There's no use running around screaming in the fountain as if the world has ended. You'll be fine. 2, experiment, try everything, at least once. And 3, be flexible. Don't stick to this idea that builds are these rigid things that never change. They aren't. So, with all that in mind, let's go to the first replay. So in this replay, I'm actually going to be playing Rise. I've got the Pirate Rise skin on the PBE. I don't actually have it on live. The PBE is fun for cheaters. Anyway, I have a plan. There's a new item that I want to get called Muramana. And this is actually an upgrade to Manamune. Before you accuse me of trolling, the upgrade to Muramana has a very interesting toggled ability. When you toggle it on, any auto attack or single target ability will drain 3% of your current mana and deal twice that in damage to your opponent. Magic damage, in fact. Now, what champion in the game could be better for an item that's based on mana and does magic damage than Rise? I mean, he's the king of stacking mana. So I'm really excited to try this item. Now, the upgrade acts in a very interesting way. You can't buy it. It automatically upgrades from Manamune to Muramana when you fully stack Manamune's mana passive. You can fully stack it as a tier and buy the Manamune like that, and then it'll automatically upgrade. But either way, it'll upgrade for free once you've stacked that 750 mana. So because I need to get the mana stacked, I'm going to try to rush a tier as fast as possible. And since that's my goal and my plan, I actually have a Fairy Charm, which you can see in my inventory here. That's replaced Meki Pendant as a component of tier, and it's cheap enough, 180 gold, that I can also start with a new item called Crystalline Flask. Crystalline Flask is similar to the bottle in Dota in that it has 3 charges on it, and each charge, it heals your health and mana a little bit. In Flask's case, that's 100 health and 40 mana per charge over the course of 10 seconds. And you can actually stack these just like you would a potion. So, between these two items, I've actually got a fair amount of sustain. Crystalline Flask is actually really efficient. If you just use it once, it's basically paid for itself. And in addition to that, I've got a couple health potions, and I've got a biscuit from the utility tree, if you recall some of the discussion from last week. And so I'm in for a really good sustain lane. I'm going to be playing against this Lux, and if you are paying attention to the scoreboard, you might note that something absolutely horrible has just happened on the enemy team. Their Kha'Zix just died to blue. And I'm going to take a very brief moment to reiterate something that I mentioned in passing last week. We'll rewind a little bit, and we're going to watch this Kha'Zix. And that is, when you're going to be approaching the new Season 3 jungle, try to practice any jungler you really want to play at least once in a custom game first. Because if this Kha'Zix had done that, he might have known he should have killed the big wolf first. He might have discovered that it would have been better to have hit a potion when he started the wolves camp rather than after. He might not have killed this small lizard first, which was kind of pointless, and he might have remembered to pull the big golem away from this other small lizard so that his Q could do bonus damage to the golem. Instead, he dies an ignominious death. I don't actually know about it because they killed those warnings to anybody on the enemy team, but in general, that kind of sucked to be him. Moving back to the main subject of Season 3 items, I'm going to note something about this lane setup. Lux has actually started Boots, which is a very standard opening in Season 2, but I'm calling it into question here in Season 3. She outranges me, and she has some good harass she could do if I didn't dodge all of it, but because of a change to Boots, where they only give you 25 movement speed and the rest has been baked into your base champion speed, the advantage that is normally given to an enemy by having Boots when you don't is kind of not there. Even though I don't have Boots, I'm able to position myself in a way that she has trouble. Obviously, I'm doing a heck of a lot of damage to her. I failed to get the kill, but she has Boots, I don't, and just by standing in the minions and being a little bit of a jerk, I've really hurt her laning. I'm already at twice her creep score. I'm going to pull her up here next to me so it's a little easier to compare. And this lane is not actually going to go very well for her, even though she has Boots and 3 potions and I just have a Fairy Charm and this Crystalline Flask and stuff. But because I have these items, I'm actually sustaining very well, and I'm winning trades, and I'm taking a little bit of damage, but I'm actually getting mana back as well because I have this flask and it gives mana. and that just puts her in a position where she's spent all of her mana trying to just stay even with me, and I've won out. So this is going pretty well for me, this opening. And in general, I think Boots openings are not as strong as they were. Maybe if your top lane Boots is a little bit better, but for the mid lane, not so much. So now Lux has recalled, and I'm going to fast forward a little bit to when I actually first get my tier. It's going to be a little while. I'm farming, Lux comes back, Lee Sin comes in for a gank, he fails, Lux walks into the bush where Lee Sin is and dies. Probably should not have done that, but anyway, I finally recall, and here we are at 6 minutes, and I have my tier. So my goal in getting this Muramana is I really want to see if I can get this in time for the mid game, because it really seems like it would add a lot of damage, and it would be really nice to do a lot of damage during the mid game. So 6 minutes, that's actually fairly early. I'm doing very well. Normally you might actually start a Catalyst on Rise, but in this case I'm really wanting to try out this new item, so I've rushed a tier. I still have my flask, it's recharged because I went back into the fountain. I have a couple wards. I could have bought that other new item that I actually mentioned on my blog, Sidestone, but I wanted this tier. I really wanted this tier as fast as possible, so I went ahead and just bought some wards. I'm actually never going to buy Sightstone. I'm just going to go ahead and get other things. And just as another note, because I'm Rise has a typical problem where he can't really push waves very well, especially early. And this is allowing Lux to roam. Now, she's only level 4, and she's actually way behind me. So if you were in this position as Lux, I really wouldn't suggest trying this. But they're actually going to go for something that, if you watched the tournament this weekend, was very typical. This 3-person gank on somebody by themselves at a tower. But this is actually not a very well-conceived gank because A, Lux is pretty low level, and B, this is Elise. And Elise has her exhaust up, and she can just disappear for a while. So as a result, Twitch takes some extra damage, he takes even more extra damage, he nearly dies, and Elise gets away scot-free. In the meantime, I'm just farming up. So, if you're going to do those sorts of ganks, whether you're a jungler or a mid roaming, try to keep in mind that your target not be at nearly full health with summoner spells up and with the ability to just disappear. Now, rather than watch me farm and beat the crap out of this Lux for the next few minutes, we're going to fast forward on ahead. I warded their blue, I tried to harass Lux, I get ganked, I kill Lux but die, Lee Sin tries to fight him and dies. All sorts of fun stuff is going on, but all the while I'm trying to stack this tier. And we're going to see I farm up really well. I get a double kill here after stealing blue because I warded it, being all sorts of pro and mean to these PvE players who, if you remember from last week, they're not platinum. So, all the meanness aside, I'm actually doing extremely well, and I'm going to slow things down for just a sec here, because I'm about to go back and I have a lot of gold. If you look at my gold, I've got 2,000 gold to spend. So, when you have this kind of gold to spend, look at what's going on in the game. If I pause for a second here, we can look at the state of the game. Lux has a third of my creep score. She's at 23 to my 76. She's not doing very well at all. And she's building pretty standard. You want to get that Chalice on Lux because you're really hard up on the mana. You want to get some other things. But she doesn't have any damage, and she's way behind. She does have a kill and an assist, but if we look at her gold, she is actually 2,000 gold behind me, and we're only at the 12th minute. So practically the difference between me and Lux is almost the entire difference between our teams. So she's not a threat. However, there's also nobody else on the enemy team that really does that much magic damage. Riven certainly doesn't. Twitch certainly doesn't. Kha'Zix does a tiny bit, as does Blitz, but they're not really going to have any substantial amount. So I don't really need to build any magic resist whatsoever. It's just not a concern. What is a concern, however, is armor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish my Catalyst, and I'm going to buy pieces of Glacial Shroud. That's pretty standard on Rise, but sometimes you do need to be concerned about whether the enemy AP is doing well, and grabbing a Negatron Cloak can be a big deal, or getting Mercury Shreds. There isn't really that much CC I'm concerned about here that Mercury's Treads would help with. There's Blitz Grab, but if he grabs you, Mercury's Treads don't help. So I've gone ahead and I've got the Sapphire Crystal, and I've actually run into another problem here. I thought Chain Vest cost 700 gold, and it does in Season 2. But in Season 3, it costs 720, so I ended up hanging out in the fountain longer than I anticipated because I didn't actually have quite enough gold for what I wanted to buy. Now, we can actually do a pretty good check right here to see how well I'm stacking this Tier of the Goddess. And I've only stacked it about 250 so far, and I've had it for about 7 minutes. So if you're good at easy math on the fly, and you just do some simple multiplication, you can see that it's probably going to take me about 21 minutes to stack this. And rather than spend those 21 minutes watching this in slow motion, we're going to speed on ahead, and I may even skip if this doesn't catch up by the time I'm done talking. But in any case, 21 minutes to stack it, even when I finished it at 6 minutes, that's kind of rough. That's not going to actually complete in time for the mid-game. The mid-game is actually about to already start. Most games, you can really say that you're at the transition between the early game and the mid-game around the 17th or 18th minute. Maybe in lower rankings that can go on to more like the 20 or 22nd, but still, the mid-game is especially with towers falling, this is really the mid-game right now. And if my estimate isn't remotely accurate, I'm not even going to have this done for another 7 minutes now. It's going to be 7 more minutes before I have actually finished stacking this. And if we do another brief check, I've actually got Montegomery now, and I'm still only just under 600, even now, at 21 minutes. I've still got another 170 mana to go. So it really looks like I'm not going to finish this in time for the mid-game, which is kind of sad. But at the same time, it lets me know that, if I were in a much harder lane, like a Cassiopeia or a LeBlanc, and I needed to invest in that Catalyst sooner, and I needed to delay things in order to get a Negatron Cloak or something to survive, I wasn't going to finish this in time for the mid-game anyway. So, it's not... obviously you want to have your big damage items as soon as possible, but if I really needed to get some sustain instead of this item, that would have been fine. So, I actually finish it right now at 26-25. So again, this is not the mid-game. In fact, in some professional games, this is practically the start of the late game. So, if anything else, Muramana is a late-game item. Now, before I continue, this is a little disappointing that I couldn't finish it in time for the mid-game, but what we're going to see is that this item does a lot of damage. I've got a fair amount of mana right now, so the actual damage it does per attack, whether that's an auto attack or a single target ability, is 200 damage. So that's adding a lot, because if you were to look at my skills, which I don't have up right now, but take my word for it, my W does about 400 to 450 damage, as does my Q. So in a Q-W-Q combo, and throwing in an auto attack for good measure, I'm actually doing 800 damage just from this new item. And the rest of everything I do is 1200 damage. So this is adding more than 50% damage to my attacks. And we're going to see that this can be a lot of damage. So here we are back in the replay, and I am going to skip ahead a little bit to a point in time called 32 minutes and 40 seconds. So rather than going zipping on along, as you can see, we're still winning the crap out of this game because I'm totally a boss when I'm playing against players who are nowhere near my skill level. Usually. This is one of those things like beating your 3-year-old nephew in Mario. You really should never be proud of this. In any case, I'm going to catch this Blitz out of position a little bit. He's going to come around here, and I'm going to see him, and I'm going to nail him with a spell combo. You can also see Elise's stun incoming. Now, he has enough MR to reduce my damage by about a third or more. But despite that, I am going to totally chunk him. This is just my QW combo right here, and he's almost lost half of his health. He's got 2,000 health. But you can see, because of this item I've got, he totally is getting fried. Vlad's actually going to contribute as well. I get another Q in, I get an auto attack, and he just disappeared. This is not a Blitz who's actually doing too badly. He's got an item called Twin Shadows. You might have seen that last week, so he's got some resist. He's got the Ruby Sightstone, so he's got some extra health. And he's got some pretty good runes. He actually had around 80 magic resist. But I totally fried him. And then I totally fried Kha'Zix, and now I'm totally frying Lux. And that was all very, very painful for the enemy team. Very painful indeed. So if we were actually to do the math and look at how much damage a death cap would have added in those same situations, I estimated, before the show, that in those same situations with, QW, QE, that Death Cap would only add around 300 damage. Beyond the fact that Death Cap plus a tier is much more costly than just Muramana, this is just insane, the comparison, because like I said before, a QWQ auto attack combo, I'm adding like 800 damage. That's more than twice what a Death Cap would have added. So Muramana is actually ridiculously good on Rise. I mean, ridiculously. I would not even think about building tier into Archangel Staff, because this is just so much more damage. And it also has the added benefit that you get some attack damage, so you're not completely useless when it comes to dealing damage to towers. I mean, that's long been one of the problems with Rise, is that you're so focused on mana, even if you're building Rod of Ages, even if you're getting an Archangel Staff, that you just don't do any damage to towers. But now, you've got this Muramana, you at least do some respectable amount. So I was really happy with how that game turned out, not only because I totally kind of owned the poor people who were playing against me. I mean, that wasn't really fair. This is the PBE. This is not a place where the Platinum players typically gather for very long. They've got better things to do, like actually play ranked on the proper servers. But still, that item worked out really well, and we also saw a little bit of just a moment where you can pause and think, what should I build? So, again, just keep in mind, these new items are really cool, so don't panic when you're trying to figure them out. Don't, just try them out, experiment, be bold, and just adjust on the fly. Be ready to be flexible as things change and you realize, well, maybe that item I tried didn't work out very well. And we're actually going to see that I actually run into a problem with the next item that I'm going to try out, and I have to solve it, or else my whole build is just going to be totally horrifically bad. I'm actually going to be jungling a Moo in this game, and I jungled some last week, but you'll get to see some interesting stuff this week too. So let's get to the replay. As we can see, I am everyone's favorite mummy, because he's the only mummy in the game. I'm playing a Moo. And my goal this game, I have another plan, I always have a plan, is I want to get an item called the Shard of True Ice. Now this is an item that builds out of Cage's Lucky Pick and Mana Manipulator, and it's really neat because it actually keeps the GP10. It's the only upgrade to a GP10 item I know of that does that. And you also get the Mana Aura, but even better still, it has an active ability. And this active ability can be cast on yourself or an ally, and for 4 seconds you'll have an aura around you which slows nearby enemies by 30%. Now the range is slightly less than a Mumu's Tears, but it sounds really, really good, and it's also fairly cheap. So this is the first item I'm really going to try to rush. And there's also a second item I really want to try. It's actually one of the jungling items. It's the Blessing of the Ancient Golem, or Spirit of the Ancient Golem. I can never keep track of which is which. But in any case, it builds out of Machete, and in addition to just giving you a whole bunch of extra damage in the jungle, you get 500 health, 30 armor, some health and mana regen, and you also get Tenacity. Now that's really exciting for me, because generally speaking, tanks are kind of stuck building Mercury's Treads. If you have any reason to really need Tenacity, it's Mercury's Treads or bust, because in Season 2, your other options were Elisa's Miracle, which was exclusive with Shirelia's Reverie. You kind of wanted to build your Philistone into that. There was Cloak and Dagger, which has none of the stats a tank wants. And then there's Moonflare Spellblade, which technically could work on a Moo, but why would you get that when you could get Mercury's Treads? But now that there's an actual tank item that has Tenacity, I could potentially build any number of other boots, from Tabi to the new actually useful Swiftness boots, to even Ionian boots if I so felt. I have options, and that feels really good. So I want to get that item second as soon as I can finish the Shard of True Ice. So I'm actually going to spend a lot of time farming, and my lanes are generally going to do pretty good. I'm going to fast forward a bit here. I'm only level 2 because that Eve and that Zed stole EXP from me, so I'm only level 2 when I go to do this red. That kind of sucks, but I was prepared. I started with 5 potions rather than a flask, which is very tempting to do when you go deep utility, but you really, really need all 5 potions. And so I'm able to farm, and I'm doing quite well, and I totally missed something very important that happened. I saw that Wukong killed Akali top. I saw that Zyra got ganked, but she was otherwise doing well against Lee Sin. But something that I didn't see that's going to become very important in just a moment is that Misfortune got a double kill bottom. Now, again, going back to the jungling, this is something that you really need to keep in mind when you're about to gank. Pay attention to what the enemy's items are, because this gank is not going to go well at all. Not only because these two people right here missed a golden opportunity to slow this Blitzcrank down and do something to actually get the gank going, but also because I latch onto him and this happens. So in case you didn't catch exactly what went on there, Misfortune, who has a BF I am trying to fix this. Do we have sound yet? I've done certain things that were supposed to work. Fixed, yes. Okay. I looked at the XSplit support forums to try to fix the problem, but apparently the fix that I did didn't work. I promise you guys that next week, hopefully we can avoid this. Yeah, what I had to do just now is I had to actually mute XSplit and then unmute it. I don't know what the deal is with that. We won't dwell on that. We're going to get back to the replay. So I'll start from the beginning. I've just finished this Shard of True Ice. 15 minutes is actually a really good time to finish that, because that's right when the mid-game's about to start. So we can see that I can actually finish this item before the mid-game. You can see that I've actually got Ninja Tabi because I had that horrible experience with Misfortune before, and it's pretty obvious I'm going to need some armor and some defense against this super-fed 724 Misfortune. Wukong has been chased off, but Eve and I are about to try to gank, and we'll see how this goes. So I missed my binding because he flashes, and we go in here, and this doesn't actually go all that great. Blitzcrank makes a mistake here. I managed to get a kill on him, but we don't actually get both of them. I actually didn't even get my ult off or the Shard of True Ice. And I highlight this moment because it's become fairly apparent to me that there is a critical problem with rushing Shard of True Ice. Now let's go over the attributes of Shard of True Ice for a moment. It has 45 ability power, it has 4 GP10, it has 6 mana regen per 5 in an aura, and it has that unique active ability. What doesn't it have? Any defensive stats whatsoever. My only defensive item right now is this Ninja Tabi. I literally have nothing else. And realizing that, I realized I really can't go for this Blessing of the Ancient Golem. It's not... I don't have that sort of leverage right now, because Misfortune's fed, and if I just build a Giant's Belt, that's not going to be sufficient for keeping me alive in team fights. I need to get something well-rounded and efficient right away, so I'm going to start working on Aegis instead. Now, Aegis, of course, has an upgrade now called Runic Bulwark, which makes both the aura and the item itself stronger, which is nice. But in general, I'm just worried about, well, I have to adjust my build. This is the adaptability I mentioned before, because what I wanted to do is not going to work. And sometimes it's not going to work because you've never tried it before, and sometimes it's not going to work because the circumstances are just different than normal. So I'm going to skip ahead to an actual team fight, and we're going to see how this Shard of True Ice works. So, as we can see, Zyra has died. This is going to be a running theme this game. And we're going to actually chase down this Misfortune. Now, I'm nowhere near her, but I can cast this on allies. So, this beautiful little snowflakey circle here is the Shard of True Ice aura. And it's actually slowed Misfortune down to only 267 movement speed. Now I've cast it on Wukong because, hey, I can, and he's the one who's actually in the fray. Why cast it on myself? I'm way over here. So because of this slow, Misfortune can't really get away, which allows me to latch onto Blitzcrank and get close and steal the kill. And because she was slowed, and then Zed was able to catch up, we were able to get Sejuani as well. So you can see, this item is actually pretty useful. I mean, it wasn't a super game changer in that fight. We might have still caught her regardless, but it certainly made it a heck of a lot easier to get all of those people. And we can move right along to yet another one. Let's go right here to 2050. They're going to keep trying to push this mid tower, and I'm going to keep stopping them. This is basically how we win the game, and how I go from, you know, a 2k lead here to a much bigger lead. They keep trying to push this middle turret, and I'm just always there. So there's only the two of us here right now, but generally the two of us are the scariest people on the team, so they're a little reluctant to fight us a little bit. But I'm just going to run right in here because I saw Zed coming, and we get right on top of Misfortune. Now, no, I actually haven't used the Shard of True Ice yet, and the reason I haven't done that is because they haven't tried to run yet. So I'm waiting, and now. Blitzcrank was obviously running away. It was obvious we were going to win, and they would probably try to flee. So there goes the Shard of True Ice on Wukong again. I thought he was going to chase down Blitzcrank. He didn't. But we still are able to get this Lee Sin and this Sejuani very easily, thanks, in a large part, to the Shard of True Ice. This, a 30% slow, is actually really, really good. And a pro tip to all of you Blitzcrank players out there, don't grab a tanky Amumu with his bandage up into the tower when 3 of his allies are nearby. That's just inviting him to stun you and then for them to murder you. So again, Shard of True Ice is working out pretty well. And I actually have one more application I want to show you. I'm actually going to use it on myself this time. And I'm going to leave most of the team fight to my allies. And I'm going to hunt down MF myself. Misfortune is going to die by the hands of the Sad Mummy. So I'm kind of a little bit overextended here. Their whole team's here. But they're a little scared of the mummy because they don't know where everybody else is exactly. But Akali, she's brave, she's bold, she's going to come out and she's going to say hello. She's going to give me a little hug there. And I grab onto her, and I wait, and here is a textbook Amumu Ultimate. And I'm pretty confident that Wukong can clean up there. So I'm going right on top of Misfortune. And look at how slow she's moving in the aura. It was just brutal. And it actually lasts for a second after the aura is over. So between some grabs, some tantrums, I chase her out of the fight, she doesn't get to use her ultimate, and we just win another team fight, and we're 10k gold ahead. So you can just see this item is really powerful on a tank, on a bruiser, and it's obviously more oriented towards a support champion to use on other people, but it's just a really, really good item. And I'm really happy with how it worked out. So moving on, and back to all of you people, let's just review a little bit about that replay. So I didn't exactly get to do the build that I wanted to do. I was hoping, beyond hope, that I would be able to rush this Shard of True Ice and then go straight into this other item, the Blessing of the Ancient Golem. And that didn't work out because I simply was not tanky enough. It would have been nice if I'd been tanky enough, but I wasn't. And as a result, I had to do something in between. I had to adapt my build. I had to buy Ninja Tabi because I fed Misfortune with that triple kill bottom. That was a lot of fun. And I had to buy Aegis because it was just the better thing to do. It helped my team. It made me a lot more well-rounded and tanky. You saw me just brazenly walking into the enemy team. And it was a good way to tie myself over until I could actually get that Blessing of the Ancient Golem. So the same principles that I iterated before applied. Don't panic. My item build didn't work out, but I didn't freak out. I was able to just experiment a little bit, adapt things, and everything was fine. And there are a lot of items to experiment with. And I'm going to experiment with another one in our last and final replay of the night, where I'm going to play Vayne. Now, if you've been following some of my experiences as an AD carry on my Smurf with a friend of mine, I've not actually been doing too well. And we're going to see that pattern repeat in this game. Not in part due to the fact that I actually have a support Singed who has no idea what he's doing, but also because you may have noticed I have done something that, if you were listening to me earlier, I don't think is actually that good anymore. I've started boots. Now, generally speaking, Boots has been, as I said before, the thing to do in Season 2, if you can get away with it. The positioning power of having 50 movement speed over your opponent generally outweighs everything. But because this is Season 3, I don't have 25 more movement speed over my opponent. I don't have 50 more movement speed. Sorry, I misspoke. I only have 25 because they've halved the movement speed of Boots, and they've baked the rest into your base movement speed. So this Varys, who's gone ahead and started Dorn's Blade, is actually going to pose a very, very big problem. Because even though that's only 10 more damage, and even though he doesn't start with potions, his range, combined with the fact that he has some sustain from this Dorn's Blade, and he actually starts with 80 more health, is just going to be an absolutely monumental problem for me. I'm just going to have a nightmare of a time. Because he just does a crap ton of damage. Like, I'm just sitting here by the tower, he sees me, he's going to charge up his Q, and I'm not really paying attention. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Sitting at the tower. Ow! Now let's look at how much damage he just did to me. He just did 119 damage. That's a third of my health, or so, or a fourth, a third, somewhere around there. That's really nasty. And he actually, from just that damage, he's got about 230 health on me. So if we were to fight right now, I would obviously lose. And this is going to be a running theme for the rest of the lane. I'm actually going to go back and heal because I'm not a derp, and the lane and everything, you know, is just spawning, so I should be able to get back to the lane in time to farm. But he obviously just does a crap ton of damage compared to me. I mean, I'm okay. I've got 72 attack damage, because I've got 80 runes, but he's got 71, and he's probably got penetration or something. He's got the same amount of AD, but he's got penetration, he's got an ability that scales really well off AD right at the start, and this is going to be a problem. It's also going to be a problem because this Singed has no idea what he's doing. He started Boots as well. That's not going to work out very well for him either. But what we're really going to see in this lane is that the fact that I started Boots doesn't really help me. Even though I have Boots, the speed differential between us, just like it was when I was playing Rise against Lux, isn't enough for me to play hit and run very easily. I can get this creep score, obviously, but if I get in range of him, I can't surprise him very well. He can just turn around and start attacking me, and there's no really big deal. And so when we get into a little fight very shortly, things are going to go very, very poorly for me, even though I actually got an extra potion since I went back. I've got 4 potions. But he's just going to do so much damage. Even though I have armor runes, I'm not skimping on the armor runes, I'm not skipping on the magic resist. It's just this difference between our item choices has just put him at a big advantage. He also has some sustain from Nami. If you've never seen Nami, that's her, that's the champion that's coming out. But, I mean, look at all that damage I just took. And it's only, you know, he's only got a 1 level advantage on me. I just hit level 2. But I can't really compete with that. And Singed gets really badly hurt. I make a huge mistake. I accidentally Q towards him. I get the ignite, and I'm killed. He started Dorn's Blade, and yeah, I did a lot of damage to him. Yeah, I do have 2 potions left. But he just, obviously, if we actually fight, can crush me. And I don't really have, as Vayne, any way to fight with him. Now, before I forget, I actually do have a plan on Vayne as well. There's an item I really, really want to get called Sword of the Divine. Now, those of you who have been playing this game for as long as I have may remember that Sword of the Divine used to be an item way back in the day, but was removed around the time that Riot got rid of all the dodge mechanics, save for what is now Jax's E. It was an item whose sole purpose was really just to help you against somebody who'd stacked dodge. The old Ninja Tabi had dodge, and now instead they have that auto-attack damage reduction. But if you were playing against a Jax or somebody who built Tabi, removing dodge via Sword of the Divine could have been useful. It also gave you a little bit of penetration when you used the active, but it really wasn't that good of an item because it was only 60 attack speed and a very situational active ability. And so it kind of sucked. In any case, I don't know why. I turned around because I thought I was going to kill him. He survived with 3 health. It was very sad. Very, very sad indeed. I'm feeding him. He's 201. I've only got 1 kill. I actually have more creep score than him. I've got double his creep score. Isn't that fantastic, folks? Double 5 is 11. Nice. In any case, this is obviously not going well for me. But I have this item I want. And the new Sword of the Divine is really interesting. It still gives you a bunch of attack speed. But the new active is very, very different. Since there's no more dodge outside of Jax, instead of cutting into dodge and giving you penetration, when you use the active on the new Sword of the Divine, you gain 100% crit and 100% attack speed for 3 attacks or 3 seconds. Now this active has a 1-minute cooldown, and while it's on cooldown, you don't gain the regular 45% attack speed that's passive on the item, so you do have to be very judicial in its use. But given that Vayne typically loves rushing Phantom Dancer for the attack speed and for the crit, I thought, let's apply the same principle to this item. The reason why Phantom Dancer is so strong on Vayne is because she can max her W first, and so the attack speed allows her to just stack up her procs really fast, and because when she goes into her ultimate, a ton of attack speed and a ton of crit really synergizes with that extra AD that she gets. So my theory that I'm going to test in this game is that by rushing Sword of the Divine, I can totally destroy people very quickly with those 3 automatic crits. And this is actually going to be a fairly decent test, because this lane is going absolutely horribly. I am going to be way behind. This Varus is going to absolutely destroy me, and things will not go well. So rather than watch this Varus utterly and humiliatingly kill me multiple times, I'm going to actually fast forward to a point where this item, this Sword of the Divine, comes into play. So we're going to just skip on ahead. Right now, if you notice, he's still only 201. And I'm actually about to die again. Woe is me. I'm thinking, oh, am I going to get away? Oh yeah, this is the really derp moment. When they have Ignite, don't do what I'm about to do and just like walk into range of him. You see that? 1 auto attack, 1 Ignite, 1 dead, 900 ELO playing Vayne. Like that was a 900 ELO level play right there. That's just utterly embarrassing. Utterly embarrassing. So rather than continue to watch this humiliating experience, we're going to skip ahead to the 22nd minute. So right around here is where I finish my Sword of the Divine finally. Oh, I'm a little too far. Let me go back just a bit. Oh, 18 minutes. I have my timer off. For shame, for shame. So here, it's 18 minutes and 16 seconds. I've just finished my Sword of the Divine. You can see things are not exactly going well. He's a good 1,300 gold ahead of me. He's ahead of me on CS. He's got 3 kills and 2 assists up on me, and this Zed did the wonderful thing of stealing all of my lane farm. So I'm not even going to bother to try to fight this Varus. When he comes into lane, I'm just going to say, screw it. There's action happening mid. I finally have my new item in time for the mid game, just barely in time, thanks to a few kills I managed to pick up somewhere. And I'm gonna go where the action is. So here he is, and I'm like, yep, screw it, I'm leaving. I'm out. Singed actually kept leaving to go do things elsewhere, and that really contributed to the whole Monte is sucking at Vayne thing. If you're a support, don't just leave your short-range AD carry in the lurch. So I've got my Sword of the Divine. There's a big fight happening here, and I'm going to go after this Rengar. Now, he has roughly 800 health here, so let's see how long it takes me to murder him. We're at about 13.5 seconds past the minute here, and I'm going to attack him. So there's 1 attack right at the 14th second, there's a 2nd attack, and a 3rd, and he just kind of disappeared. I'm down to 1, that literally was 1 second, and I did roughly about 1,000 damage, thanks to Sword of the Divine. Now, because I killed him, Sword of the Divine actually had its cooldown reduced by half. That's another neat thing about this active, is anytime you kill somebody, you have the remaining duration on the item's active, which is generally useful in teamfights where you're a carry and you might kill a lot of people. So I'm going to speed things up again, we're going to continue this teamfight. And Pantheon's going to come after me, and I don't have the Sword of the Divine active, but he's a little low on health, and with a little help from Brand, I'm able to take him down. This is also the power of leveling W first on Vayne, is that even if things are going pretty horrible for you, you can still do a lot of damage thanks to true damage. Even if they've got armor, even if everything's not going great, you do 60 true damage plus 8% of their maximum health, which can be quite a lot in Varus' case. 8%, that's roughly about an extra 120 damage, so 200 damage every 3rd attack, not bad. So now that I've gotten 2 kills, I actually have my Sword of the Divine back. And I'm going to use it again, and I get 1 attack off on this Elise, and she's got 170 health, and because of the crit, I did just enough damage, 185 to kill her in 1 shot. So I can turn the rest of these attacks on this Varus, who just crit me for a heck of a lot of damage. And I actually kill him too. Just ever so barely. I got 2 crits off on him, and the third attack procced my silver bullets, and I was able to kill him. And in fact, over the course of that team fight, I killed Rengar, I killed Pantheon, I killed Elise, and I killed Varus. That's really good. I got 4 kills. I'm actually still pretty far behind this Varus, because he actually got a number of kills too, and he's ahead of me on creep score, but I was actually useful. I mean, that's fantastic. I've got this random item, you know, Sword of the Divine, who knows if this is going to be good, and even though this Varus has just been utterly stomping on me, I was able to get 4 kills in a team fight, legitimately, not just like kill stealing, although that Elise was a little bit borderline. But I was able to have an impact with this item, and my team is actually now ahead on gold despite all of my badness. So we're actually going to skip ahead a little bit more to another point where I'm able to fight with this item. That's actually too far. No, that's actually right about right. Right there. So what's happening right now, if you pay attention, is Varus and Nami tried to rush this dragon. And they're going to realize that we're coming for them, and they're going to try to run away. But I'm cutting them off over here, and we're going to see just how quickly I'm able to murder this Varus with Sword of the Divine. So he has roughly 1,200 health, 1,300 health left right now. I push him into the wall, which takes out a good bit. And only now do I use the crits. I get 1 attack, 2 attack, and I actually don't even get the third off, because his poison and his throw kills Varus. And I get my last crit off on Nami, and she takes a lot of damage. We don't actually get her, I don't think. I don't think we do anyway. Do we? Oh, we actually do. We get another kill. So, as we can see, this item gives you a ridiculous amount of burst damage as Vayne. Using my ultimate, I just was hitting for back-to-back 200 damage hits. I actually have a BF sword now, and a longsword to help out. I'm working towards Bloodthirster. For those of you who aren't aware, Vampiric Scepter now builds out of Longsword. It's an 800 gold item that gives you 10% lifesteal and 10 attack damage. Kind of puts a damper on those Vamp Scepter rushes, those old 2 Dorns plus Vamp Scepter builds. But if you're going to build Bloodthirster anyway, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I just do a heck of a lot of burst damage with this item. And so long as I kill somebody, it comes back pretty conveniently, and all I have to do is be careful not to use it too soon. In a team fight, if I use it too soon, I'm out that 45% attack speed, and if I don't kill somebody, it ain't coming back anytime soon. So I've got one more incredible murder moment that I want to show you before we're done with this replay. And I'm going to actually run into this Varus one last time. Now, I see him in this lane, and I think he's going to come this way, because this is where the action is. And I was hoping I was going to catch him in this bush, but he's actually going to get to this bush faster because he has Zeal and I don't. So he hits me with his ultimate, he hits me with his Q, he gets an auto attack off. That probably wasn't the exact correct order to do those things on Varus, but you can see he's done a lot of damage. And yet, I hit my Sword of the Divine, and I get 1 300 damage crit, 1 400 damage crit, and 1 500 damage crit. And he just kind of disappears. Now, Exhaust helped, but that was just a heck of a lot of damage. And now my cooldown is halved. I probably only have about 20 seconds left before this comes back, and I can just come up here and push this tower no problem. So this, I really like this item. Now, it does have some issues. For example, where am I going to get any bonus movement speed from? I've got this item. It's kind of filling the role of Phantom Dancer, so I don't really have any bonus movement speed on me. But I need to get some somewhere, probably. It'd be really nice. And there are some items that can potentially help me do that, but I still haven't actually solved that issue. So, let's just review a little bit here. In most of my games, I either had some trouble, or there was a moment where I could at least decide what kind of a build I could do, or what kind of changes and adaptations I could make. And in that very last game, we saw that I had a lot of trouble, because apparently I'm bad at AD carries. Woe is me. But despite that, I was able to use that build, and I discovered that, hey, that item can kick some serious butt. I mean, that was absolutely fantastic. And I really recommend, whenever the changes hit the server, or if you happen to be on the PvE, go try that out against some bots, and you will just have a lot of fun. But yeah, so those were 3 items that I think were very interesting, and there was also, a couple others that snuck in there if you were paying attention. And that's just sort of what you need to do when you approach Season 3. It's just you find an item that you think is interesting. It can be anything from, they made some changes to this item and I want to try it out, or hey look, that new Frozen Fist, that looks really good. I should build it on absolutely everybody. You might think, as was discussed in the Team Liquid forums, hey, what if we tried Zephyr plus Phage instead of Trinity Force? Stuff like that. Just come up with an idea, or just look at an item and think, that's the perfect item for a champion I play. And just try it. Just go out there, just don't freak out because there's all these item changes, all these mastery changes and jungle changes. Just be like, that item looks cool, I want to try it. And just go for it. Unless you're jungling and I want to avoid dying, you can even just go into a game with people and say, I'm going to try something different and we'll see if this works. And that's the season. There's so many Season 3 items. Something should excite you out there. Whether it's Runen's Hurricane, which allows you to attack 3 people at once. Whether it's the new Ravenous Hydra for melee, which builds off Tiamat. The old joke item. Tiamat is now pretty serious business because the area of effect is bigger, and you lifesteal off anything you hit with it. And it upgrades to Ravenous Hydra, which is even better. It's got an active ability that does AoE around you. It's cool. But there's all sorts of items to be excited about. So be excited about them and just try them. Go out there. Just don't be afraid of people judging you or thinking, oh, he's building wrong. Because everybody is going to be building wrong, whether or not they acknowledge it. Very few people, just a couple people like myself who've been on the PBE a lot, will have any idea what they're doing come Season 3. There's just a huge difference between reading items off a list and actually playing with them. So I've been talking for about 50 minutes now, and it's about time that I answer questions. So, Tiamat is still pretty terrible, says TL Casting Golems. Well, I've enjoyed it. It's still cool. In any case, if you guys have any questions about Season 3 items, about Season 3, about the tournament this weekend, we've got plenty of time. Ask away, and I will answer. I do have one thing I'd like to note. Last week, somebody asked about Kha'Zix, and I was kind of down on going W first. But if you were watching the tournament this weekend, pretty much everybody who played Kha'Zix went W first. So that's a little bit of a mea culpa there. Apparently, going W first is better than anything else because you don't actually have to use your gap closer to get to somebody. And you can hit multiple people with it, and it applies your passive, and all of that stuff. Yeah, Soaz was a freaking beast. I felt so bad for him that last game, because it wasn't entirely his fault. I've actually said this in a number of threads, but Fnatic just gave up, ward control and map control for the last half of that last game, or that second game, and it was just, and because of that, he actually couldn't push out without the whole enemy team just knowing where he was going and knowing that they were perfectly safe and just coming and murdering him. Like that one time when they were all sitting in that bush, and he was pushing, and they're just sitting in that little tri-brush by the blue buff, and they're just waiting. They had wards at the blue buff and at Fnatic's wolves, so they just knew, hey, nobody's coming, we can sit here and just kill Soaz. I felt so bad for him. He tried hard. But those games went the way they went, and World Elite won. But yeah, the evolution order is very different from what I recommended last week, and I wanted to point that out so that any misinformation I gave was not spread around too far. Apologies, I think it was Kaznode who asked. Maybe it was somebody else. But anyway, you guys aren't asking any questions. You're leaving me here just to talk by myself. Shame on you guys. Shame, shame, shame. So I guess I'll just use this moment to just reiterate, don't panic, experiment, be flexible, and I'd like to shill for a bit. You can follow me here. That's why I don't play Kaz. I'm going to shill for just a little bit, though. Obviously, you can catch me every week here at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Coast, 6 o'clock West Coast, and I'm here every week, every Monday. You can follow me on Twitch TV, and you'll just see me when I go live. You can also follow me on Twitter at Montegomerylol. You can follow me on Facebook. I have a Montegomerylol page on Facebook. You can follow my blog, montegomerylol.blogspot.com. You can send me emails to montegomerylol@gmail.com. I am all over this social media business. So I'm sorry for you people in Europe. I'm very sorry. In any case, I'm just chilling. Follow me. Give me the likes so that I feel well loved. I'm a sad, lonely man. sad. In any case, have I tried Nami? I've played around with Nami a little bit, and I think she gets a little bit of a bad rap for being an inferior Janna. And in some extent, she's similar in that, she has an ability that allows you to slow your opponent. She has essentially a knock-up, and she has an ultimate that has some sort of CC on it. But she doesn't have, like, a shield or something. I think she's actually really good. Her ult moves really slowly, but I mean, you actually saw the ult a couple times in that replay with Vayne, and I dodged it pretty easily. The speed of it is very awful. It's not really good as an initiation tool, unless the enemy is very badly positioned, because it's just really, really easy to just walk out of the way of it. So it's the kind of thing you would actually use when somebody is already trapped, or when they just don't have another direction to run. Like, if you think aiming an Ashe ult or an Ezreal ult is hard, holy crap, you will, even though the range is really big, this is something that you might use as you're going past mid lane to help your mid lane gank, or use as a way of forcing people towards a jungler or something like that. It's not really like an Ashe arrow. It's much less effective, but it does look really cool. Yeah, use it to chain your CC as a setup for your Q or something like that. Wait till the Mumu ult hits then. Because the nice thing about the range is you don't have to be really close to hit it. If you know, like, a Mumu's going to go in, you can just cast it immediately. And by the time the ult is over, it will be there and they won't have much of a chance to dodge it. But it's not something that will set up many fights unless somebody is just really oblivious to what's going on. And since it's not a stun, it's also just a slow. That's just another aspect of it. But it is a very big ultimate, and it does do AoE magic damage. So it's fairly effective. It's just not a hard crowd control. I think she's actually pretty good. She can work. I think she'll be pretty scary in a 2v1 lane, because her heal will heal both her and her partner and damage you. Because if she casts it on herself, it'll bounce off her to you and then back to her ally. So what have I done with Tiamat? I've tried it on Fiora, and that worked pretty well. Can you play? No, I'm gonna finish the question about Tiamat first. I've tried it on Fiora. It works well on Fiora, and it is kind of situational. It's really at its best if you're going to have sort of a mosh pit fight where everybody's going to be really clumped together, because then the lifesteal works off of everybody you're hitting, and so when you're hitting like 3 or 4 people at the same time with all the AoE damage, it actually becomes a lot of lifesteal. Otherwise, a Bloodthirster is actually better unless you're planning on split pushing. As for Nami, she's not a good mid at all. The thing about her W is it's only really efficient when you're either hitting 2 opponents or hitting you yourself and an ally, because it won't bounce like from you to the enemy back to you. It can only bounce once to a person, so it's really ineffective when you're solo against the person. And outside of that, she's got her Q, which is okay for doing damage, but it's not good for wave clearing. Like, think a smaller Galio Q. You're never going to hit more than 3 creeps with it. And she doesn't have anything else really for wave clearing, so she's just not very good. At least like Janna or Lulu have wave clear. If you don't have wave clear mid, you either better be somebody like Ryze who can just carry the crap out of the late game, or you just better be somewhere else. So Scarf Samurai asks, seeing how there's some new support items that offer AP, I've been pondering about brand support. Do you think it would work? The thing about brand support is the only thing he brings to the table is 1 stun. Everything else he brings is damage. Like, literally, he has that 1 conditional stun that can be blocked by minions. It's funny as a joke, but it's just not very good as an actual support. Like, you'd be much better off with Zyra, who has a root, and she's got slows, and she's got that knock-up from her ultimate. You'd be better off with Fiddlesticks, who has both a fear and a ridiculous silence, and he's got some sustains, so he can be a little aggressive as long as he doesn't get, like, totally demolished in 3 seconds. And, of course, he's got his ultimate that makes everybody scared all the time. And even you can even imagine a Malzahar support being better, because at least Malzahar support has both a silence and a long duration suppression effect. So in general, Brand just doesn't bring enough to the table. What you want out of a support is just a lot of CC and just utility effects. And when you only have one, that's not enough. So, I mean, it's a neat idea. It's always neat to think, oh, what about Fygar support? It's like, no, you know, like, he has the stun, but not support was funny, but nobody even played. Oh, I played Nautilus in one of my placement matches, actually. It felt really old school and fun. I remember playing Nautilus back in Season 2 before he got nerfed. He doesn't get played by support so much, but he was funny. He did get played I remember a couple games where somebody played support. It generally didn't work out very well, but it's worked out better than some of the Maokai supports I've seen. If you ever try to play Maokai support, which isn't entirely silly, especially with Season 3 coming and various changes, don't be that Maokai that maxes saplings and then, like, clears the wave with them and pushes it and then doesn't, like, ward. I've had that Maokai support, and that's just not... It doesn't work. It does not work. Legitimate question from the TL Casting Golems. You really miss Trundle. Well, I have news for you, sir. Trundle actually works fairly well in the new jungle. He's got decent sustain. Well, you know, here's the thing about Season 3. His ultimate is the most stupidly ridiculous thing in the game with the new penetration changes. If you think his ultimate hurt tanks in Season 1, Season 3, I mean, because here's the thing, any flat penetration, and flat penetration is going to be a very big deal, any flat penetration somebody has is ridiculously enhanced now by reduction effects rather than reduced as they were before. If you had 40 penetration before in Season 2, it was effectively only 20 penetration after you got a Void Staff or a Last Whisper. But now, you're actually increasing its effect. So, it's really good. Well, you know, I don't think... It depends. I mean, here's the thing. Trundle Pillar is one of the most nasty things in the game, even if you've got some form of mobility. Because it's one of those things, it's like Maokai's ultimate. Maokai in season, you know, in low-level play is not banned because he sucks. Because without his ultimate, he's really, really bad. But in high-level play, you actually saw him banned a number of times in IPL 5, and not targeted, but just because Maokai is really, really good. A well-placed Maokai ultimate is one of the most ridiculously strong things in the game. And the same is very much true of Trundle's pillars. A well-placed Trundle pillar is absolutely incredible. It's really, really, really strong. And so Trundle pillars are very good. The itemization for jungling is generally a little bit better. Like, for example, Wriggles has been buffed. The proc damage is higher, and the proc rate is higher, so Trundle, like, champions like Trundle and Nocturne are actually legitimate solo dragon threats now. And they can very easily steal jungle. It's very strong. So there's that. And then just in general, itemization for bruisers is just better in many ways. I mean, if you want clear speed, you can get Tiamat. Not the biggest deal. AoE is not a huge deal. Like, he can clear very fast now. And there's all sorts of boot enchants. You can get things like Zephyr, which would give you tenacity and movement speed and cooldown reduction and AD. That's a really good item on Trundle because it lets you get something like Tabi, or lets you get something like the new Swiftness boots. Swiftness boots are really cool because they reduce the effect of slows. So if you're somebody like Udyr or Trundle and they've got like an Ashe or somebody, you can actually, between that and some defensive masteries, reduce the effectiveness of slows. So you're not actually slowed as much. You know, screw duration, they keep reapplying their slows, but you're actually moving faster. So that's really neat. And because you can get tenacity elsewhere, you know, why not? And you also get the extra bonus movement speed, so when you've got your Contaminate down, you can move like lightning. It's really cool. So there's just a lot of changes, and really, I wouldn't write off anybody until things have settled out a bit. Just really give everything a chance. I think Trundle may be really cool. I think we could see a comeback. He just has a lot of utility that's very, very strong late game. Even with, I mean, we saw just how having some slows around a Karthus can be a huge deal against a dive comp, because, oh yeah, 3 people dive on top of Karthus, but now they're slowed in Karthus's defile range, and sure, you killed Karthus, but you're sitting in his defile for the next 3 or 4 seconds. Good job. 3 or 4 people on your team are getting demolished by Karthus, and then he ults, and what's next? So, yeah, Tiger Udyr is actually very scary in Season 3 jungle, more so than Phoenix Udyr, because single target, much, much, much more important. So I would like, just briefly, to thank everybody who's asked questions. TL Casting Golems, Scarf Samurai, Miss Q, and 5-0 have been making some good commentary. And we are 6 minutes past the hour. If you have any more questions, I'll keep answering them, but the show is over for those of you who are done. Again, you can follow me on Twitch TV, Montegomerylol, Twitter, Montegomerylol, my blog, montegomerylol.blogspot.com. I have YouTube, where all these videos will be archived, and I have many older videos besides. I will probably be doing a few jungle guides come Season 3, so you can expect to see that there, so find me on YouTube. It's, again, Montegomerylol. This is very hard to remember, I'm sure. And on Facebook, Montegomerylol. And any emails, send them to montegomerylol@gmail.com. So that's the show for tonight. Feel free to ask any more questions. But effectively it's over, and I am now in full relaxation mode. Any further questions, sirs? I suck, says Mech. Will I be streaming my Smurf? If enough people want me to be streaming throughout the week, rather than just this show, I'll stream. You can watch me be horrible at AD there too, if you guys want. I can do that. I'm doing a lot of duo queue on an AD carry with Miss Q, actually. If you've noticed, he's a moderator for the stream. We're good buddies, and he's about as good at support as I am at AD carry, apparently, so we suck. Right now, we're down around 1200 ELO, and it's really amusing. Really amusing. Yeah, best support NA, that's Miss Q. He's awesome. Awesome. Well, hey look, I just showed off my amazing AD carry skills on stream for everybody. You know, my amazing AD carry skills, like walking back into Ignite range against Avaris. Pro plays Platinum. I'm a Platinum jungler. Let's be clear here. I'm Platinum at jungler, and I'm probably nowhere near Platinum at everything else. So that's my specialty, but I'm very good at analysis, so I can give you tips about the other roles. Don't be afraid. In any case, I'm going to end the stream. If you've got any more questions, maybe I'll be streaming later if I play some duo queue with Miss Q. I do need to take a break, collect myself, get a drink, all that fun stuff. But thank you all very much for watching. You've been great. Thank you for the questions. They were awesome. Again, tune in next week. Same Monty time, same Monty channel. No Batman theme, but good night.